It's the Get Published radio show. And here's your host, Gerald Everett Jones, the guy who has the answers because, well, he's made all the mistakes himself.
On today's show, our topic is spirituality and metaphysics. I doubt if we're going to be able to answer any profound philosophical questions, but we're going to at least survey the kinds of books you'll find in this section of the bookstore.
Or in an occult bookstore, or online for books that maybe you won't find in a normal bookstore.
Well, if those books have been banned for various reasons, you can bet there'll be some bookstores in some parts of the country that will say they've never heard of them.
Okay, well, we want to put ourselves in the place of an author who aspires to make a contribution to this field, and perhaps to help some of them avoid pitfalls. So rather than invite other authors, we're going to hear from an insightful reader. Denis Hutchison is proprietor of Afterglow of Sedona, Arizona, and he's a certified therapist, and his practice includes spiritual counseling. And he's a reader of a wide range of spiritual and metaphysical books. So, Denis, welcome to Get Published.
Well, thank you. Glad to be with you.
So, Denis, how did you get into this field, and what exactly does your practice involve?
Years ago now, I retired from teaching, and at that time I'd already been dabbling with Reiki healing energy for 3 or 4 years before that. So that was back in the late 1980s. Once I got really hooked into the concept of figuring out what energy does for people and how healing transpires, how it happens, I decided to pursue it even further, and I went to massage therapy school in Michigan. And after that, my wife and I both moved to Sedona, Arizona, where we have been for the last, 22 years now. And we've been doing not only Reiki healing, but because I went to massage therapy school, I can do hands-on. And we've been doing both of them, and my wife also went to school after that. So we've been enjoying helping people by giving good massage, but also by giving good counseling advice, and by doing a variety of different approaches to massage.
Sedona itself is widely known as both a kind of magical and some have said sacred place. Can you describe it a little bit for our listeners who haven't been there?
Well, it's a place that's beautifully overwhelming to those who first arrive here the first time they come. And you can always know who that is because they pull off to the side of the road, block traffic, pictures, and they're always stopping at the wrong place because they think they're seeing the cool stuff, and then they go another 2 miles and realize, oh my God, there's more. This is even better. And so they stop again, and then they go on again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it goes on forever.
Yes, of course, red rocks and pine trees. It is an exceptional part of the country. Now, what kinds of spiritual and metaphysical books do you read or have you read?
Well, I have read many in the past. The last few years I've been busy doing my own thing. I read a lot of Deepak Chopra's books, also Wayne Dyer, Richard Bach, Hale Dwoskin's Happiness is Free, Jim Britt.
You see some commonality in those books or some themes that you've taken away?
Every one of them has their own perceptions of what the truth is, but they all hit similar themes, and I don't think you can help but do that because, I mean, really, if you're plugged into grasping an understanding of metaphysics and spirituality and God and how things work, you're obviously going to start writing about the same things because you're connecting to the same source. Is
there any particular book that you would recommend someone read before they get started on their own kind of journey of learning about this?
Daniel Brinkley wrote a book that's about At Peace in the Light, and he also wrote 2 others, I believe. But Daniel Brinkley, and he's a fascinating fellow because he died and then he came back, and so he describes his adventures and how that worked. And there's a number of other authors. I'm not getting off the top of my head at the moment. That if you go to Barnes & Noble, it has a fairly good section of books in their locations. They don't necessarily call it metaphysical. They've got some good things there. Neil Donald Walsh is another one that's an absolute must-read. His first book, Conversations with God. The rest of the books are good, but his first book is fantastic.
Well, among the books in this field that you've read, can you identify any common mistakes that the authors have made?
I wouldn't want to call them mistakes. I'd call them perceptions. Every person on this planet, because you're on the planet, is going to be coming from some form of limitation in perception. That's what we do here. We are limited in our perception. So each person is going to be biased in some form by where they are in their life. But on the other hand, they are also, all these persons I just mentioned and others, are seekers of what the heck is going on. They want answers. They're looking for a good process by which to understand things. So they're all connected. I look at this the same way I do the books of the Bible. Every author in a book of the Bible was writing from their perception, their personal experience in life was. So you might say there's going to be a little bit of a bend to what they say, but they're all striving to touch spirituality in their form.
So, Dennis, that would tie into my next question, which had more to do with what the author of a book like this might presume would be the set of core beliefs of our audience. And I would think that you probably would be a strong advocate for the author's voice, irrespective of what he thinks the audience believes. Would that be right?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. You got to be true to yourself. If you don't speak from your own heart, you've already given up the possibility of understanding things yourself, of how to communicate with others, because everybody's looking in one form or another. Everybody's looking. And the more that they see someone striving to see and understand things in their particular way, they can connect those pieces that'll fit with them in their life. There's so many excellent authors out there writing all these different approaches to the same truth.
I like that response. I do.
Get Published Radio will be right back after this message.
You know, Get Published is all about helping you. Yeah, I mean you get published. And these days, the way to go is self-publishing, where there are no agents or editors or big publishing houses telling you can't, or making you feel like you're not good enough. You know, going back in history, many famous authors were self-publishers. With his own printing press, Benjamin Franklin published Poor Richard's Almanac in 1732, long before he was a famous statesman. That's how we know Ben's sayings, such as, "Fish and visitors smell in 3 days." Seriously, if you want to change your life or change the world or both, it's a great time to get in the game. Ebooks are particularly easy. With a click, you can reach a worldwide audience. Did you know that there are more people in China who read English than those of us who use the language in all the rest of the world? So if you've got a story to tell, write that memoir or that novel that's been percolating in your head. And if you're an established professional, or if you have a job you dislike or no job at all, give us that business or technical or even political book that establishes you as an expert who deserves serious attention. Yes, it's easy to get published, but understand you'll need help if you want professional results. Editors and copy editors help you clean up your prose. Book designers make the product eye-catching. And publicists help you be heard above all that social media noise. We have those support resources on our website, getpublishedradio.com. And there we've also got a request for services form, where you can get personal attention for whatever might be keeping you from getting it done. That's why we say getpublishedradio.com is your doorway to unlimited self-expression. Hey, it's all about the First Amendment. Use it or lose it.
Welcome back to Get Published, where it's, well, all about getting published.
Are there any trends that you see happening in this particular genre? Any topics that you think should be covered more or in a clearer way?
If we could do that, we wouldn't have this conversation going on the phone. Because we'd be going, aha, yes, boom, and it would all be done. No, approach things from your heart. Approach things from what you have felt and seen, and understand that quiet little voice that speaks to you every once in a long while, with words that you don't quite know what does that mean, or where did that come from, or why was it said that way. That quiet little voice is an important voice and a beautiful voice for you, and it'll help you greatly in moving forward. It doesn't matter if you're not on target completely. What matters is that you're speaking and writing from your heart.
Well,
and
Dennis,
by the way, when I say heart, the heart is two things. The heart is the heart, and the heart is also the soul.
I've heard you talk about the importance of a sense of humor. You want to comment on that?
Oh, we're terribly funny. And if we forget that we're not funny, then we get really serious. And there's absolutely nothing that has been created that was meant to be that serious. It's just us. We do serious. This is what we do. We're all bound up in seriosity.
You feel we overdo serious?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's terribly funny that we do, and what can we do about it? You know, it's one of the God gifts we were given.
Well, what was that book title? The Incredible Lightness of Being.
Okay, wait a minute now.
But that was a novel and I guess a movie, right? Incredible Lightness of Being.
Oh, Yeah, that was a while back, a couple of years ago. I'm not sure anymore what it said. Like, the themes are so beautifully intertwined with everybody else's themes that after a while you're looking at the same thing from a different viewpoint, which is what makes it valid. That's what, by seeing 10 different viewpoints of the same thing, each saying it in different words, that's where you start to go, oh, wait a minute, there's a message here that we can all get. Absorb that message, not get too worried about this person's lost it there, because they did. We all lose it here. That's what we do. But the person also gained insight on this, and this, and those are all cool things.
Going back to your practice, would you say that physical health is usually intertwined to your spiritual or mental states?
Well, I'll put it like this. I believe that the body is totally influenced and behaves through the mind. The body is a servant of the mind. So whatever the mind is thinking or worrying about or angry about or happy about or blissful about, that's where the body is going to go. Now, if a person has cancer and is painful and they're also thinking blissful thought, they're still going to have some pain, but they're going to have a lot different pain and a lot less focus on that pain than someone who's feeling and thinking miserably. And then the body follows. The body always follows the mind. So wherever the mind's thinking and going, the body is following. And so you're thinking how horrible everything is and how bad things are and so forth, then your body's going to go, oh, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be all sludgy and unhappy and wrapped up in misery. And we can do misery so well because we're given free will, so we can go crazy.
Do you think faith and curiosity are mutually exclusive?
I would hope not, because I'm always curious and always looking for more.
I'm kind of meaning sort of, say, scientific curiosity. There seems to be a lot of scientific beliefs that go up against faith that has caused a lot of...
Actually, it depends what scientist you're talking to. What scientist you're looking at. Depending on who you are, you would get involved in different things. But Noetic Sciences is an organization that's a national organization that's really interesting, and they've got scientists with degrees all over the place doing all kinds of fascinating research on what the body is, what the heart is. Another one is HeartMath.
I was thinking, though,
another organization you can find.
Usually in the Bible, in the opening books, there's criticism on everything was created in 7 days. That's something that science generally denies, argues against, and that people of faith believe quite literally.
Yep, but they don't know what 7 days means.
That's exactly what I was...
the point. Our solar system, or 7 days of the universe.
Plus
if we're talking about the universal existence in 7 days, that could be 10 million years or 100 million years.
Plus, a day on the Earth is related to how rapidly the Earth does a complete rotation, and that has varied very greatly.
Yeah, that's the way I've always kind of justified it as, our 7 days isn't God's 7 days necessarily. Time is different. One day
could have been 10 billion years.
Exactly.
At one point.
Well, I'd like to point out when I'm talking with people, spiritually speaking, if they're in my office or wherever, as far as the soul is concerned, that I believe we have. When a soul is observing me, my soul observing me, it's watching an hour-and-a-half movie. That's how long my movie's going to be. If I live 70, 80, 90 years, somewhere in there, about an hour and a half. To the soul, that's how long a life is going to look like, about an hour and a half. So it's not in the same hurry we might be. It's got a much longer perspective on what's going on.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. I like that.
Well, I know, Dennis, that you'd commented that the duration of, let's say, pain and suffering, and tying back to what you were saying about how humans make drama, yes, as vicious or as unfair or as catastrophic as we might think events might be, then again, it is, from this soul standpoint, the wink of an eye in this movie that's going to go on to the next scene.
Right, and it's also a learning experience for the soul. The soul is always gathering more and learning more. That's what maturity is all about. And we have our own desire for our own maturity. Soul's at a whole other level of maturation and growing.
Wow, Dennis, tell us, how can our listeners get in touch with you, especially if they're going to cruise through Sedona?
They can glow-now.com, glow-now.com. Be one way to find us. They can call us on the phone. Is it okay to give my phone number?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, 928-284-1703. 928-284-1703. I always enjoy phone calls from people, and we have great sessions, bring a lot of meaning to people's lives. And please remember something, I would like to make this point. If we did not have grief, sorrow, anger, pain, there would be no music, there would be no art.
Incredible. Thank you, Dennis.
Get Published Radio will be right back after this message.
You know, in all the history of the world, with today's technology, it's never been easier to get published, to self-publish your printed book, ebook, audiobook, even multimedia ebook. And not just novels and memoirs or how-to books and histories, although if that's what you've got, let's have it. But also poetry, spoken word, graphic novel, cartoons, children's picture book, interactive video, games, virtual reality, and imaginative mashups of all this stuff. Get into the game. Along the way, you'll no doubt need some professional help from an editor, a book designer, a publicist. But isn't the investment in yourself worth it? How about you take the money you'd spend on your next vacation and get famous instead? GetPublishedRadio.com. That's our support website where we've got links to all the resources you'll need. And don't forget that request for services form if you crave some personal attention. That's GetPublishedRadio.com. Hey, it's all about the First Amendment. You can use it or lose it.
You know, Runke Productions, the audio magicians, can take your radio shows, podcasts, audiobooks, and ads from the streets of New York to the outer reaches of the galaxy.
I think we need more echo at the end of that.
Look, visit us at runkeeproductions.com.
I still think we need more cowbell.
Welcome back to Get Published, where it's, well, all about getting published.
Tom, you have that bah humbug look. You know, what's up with that?
Well, I have spiritual questions. That's the only way that I can put it.
Don't we all?
I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe in spiritual effects. I cannot nail it down to any particular religion. That's one problem that I've always had that.
Well, that may not be a problem.
Well, maybe not. It sort of is for me, because it leaves you in a very amorphous place. Whenever a crisis happens in your life or anything, you don't know what to think. I can't go back to that little soft cocoon of it's all for the best and God is with you. I can't do that. I wish I could, but I just anyway.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's definitely easier in any aspect of your life if you identify with a particular group, especially with a religion, just because you can find so much comfort and support if you identify as something particular, and then you have your, congregation around you.
I will say there was one single sermon that really struck me when I was young, about 14 years old, in a church. We marched to church. I went to a military school, and we marched to church in full uniform.
Onward Christian soldiers.
And the preacher apparently got very, I don't know what got in his head, but everybody was always teaching about Jesus being very meek and mild. He said, don't believe that. He wasn't anything like that, because he tore up the temple of the money changers. And he said, what kind of a man would do that? And by the way, the Romans were obviously very scared of him. This guy was very powerful personality, very aggressive, very muscular, and especially he was absolutely fearless.
I have a best friend who grew up in Catholic school her whole life, and that story of Jesus tearing up that temple is her favorite story, because she was like, "Oh my gosh, Jesus is so metal."
It reverses.
Jesus is a badass. And it's in the Bible. It does touch a lot on the meek will inherit the earth, and there is what's the word I'm looking for? A real nice. That's a nice quality to have. But yeah, Jesus was not, in the way that I've seen him described, that kind of person. He was a go-getter. He did it in a very subtle way, but he was.
Well, he was perceived by the Romans literally as a revolutionary.
Yeah.
And that was part of their fear, was that Jewish prophecy was that the king of the Jews would be a descendant of the house of David, which presumably he was, part of the Bethlehem roots, and that he would actually literally become the king of the Jews. And this then, of course, becomes part of the Jewish-Christian controversy, is the Christians feel as though, well, why don't you understand that he was the king of the Jews, and and the Jews said, well, no, you don't understand. The temple was destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans, and if he'd been the king of the Jews, he would have prevented that, because obviously he wasn't literally king of the Jews.
It's going to be a back and forth forever.
That's part of why there's expectation on the part of the Jewish people that there will still be a Messiah that comes. So, but we did get a bit off the track in terms of formal religion. But I think, Tom, one of the things that may be bugging you is, you came from that conservative part of the country in North Carolina, where if you don't have that type of roots, perhaps you feel as though you don't really fit.
No, that is absolutely true. One of the saving graces, there was a brilliant Bible teacher that I had at Elon who pointed out how many fascinating spin-offs of Christianity there were, including the one that for everybody's Gnosticism,
yes, of course,
has made a big comeback. But there was one founded by a priest named Arius, an Egyptian priest who lived for about 300 years. They were Aryan Christians, not to be confused with Aryan, because a lot of the Germanic tribes adopted Arius. He said bluntly Jesus was 100% human. He did not rise from the dead.
Yes,
he did
it was
not
suppressed
turn
by
water.
The early church.
Yeah, he did not turn water into wine, and above all, he was born of woman and man. And it was Arius, Germanic tribes, that brought down Rome in the end. They saw him as a great leader and a great teacher.
Well, in the New Age, there are a lot of people in the New Age who do not really understand that a big underpinning of this new stuff is actually
absolutely
is actually 5th century Greek from
Gnosticism.
Not only Hellenic, but
mechanics, quantum mechanics.
Not only Hellenic, but also not only Gnostic, but also Hermetic literature. Thoughts are things, and of course Denis and the people in their therapy. Thoughts are things. He talked about body being the mirror image of mental states.
Yeah, that manifestation.
This Marianne Williamson, thoughts are things. That's been repeated over and over again. So a lot of this stuff, it kind of, I think Denis has got something when he's saying we all see a piece of something that's bigger. And then, of course, the message of all of us being part of the same consciousness. The scientists, the brain scientists today are often thinking that one of the theories is we participate in consciousness. It's a property of the universe. It's not something that arises in our heads. We are basically television receivers for this great thing that is the universe. So with that simple thought, we will leave you until next week. And that's our show. Get Published is all about self-publishing and self-expression, and that getting published and the ease of getting published these days is really all about exercising the First Amendment in this free society of ours. What we need these days are more ideas. Even though we're deluged with information, we need more good ideas. And we need debate about those ideas. Book-length debate, not just snippets that are posted on social media, not just selfies and cute pictures of your pets, the things that you really think. And remember, because in self-publishing there are no gatekeepers out there, that is the good news and that is the bad news. So hire some good help. Perhaps you found that here. You may find it on the website, whatever you're looking for, whether it's an editor or a book designer or somebody help you promote. But hire good help, get good advice, and by all means, please get published.
The Get Published radio show with Gerald Everett Jones is produced by Runkey Productions. Our producer is Lori Marple, and your announcer is Bill Navarro. Music by Jason Shaw. You'll find links to support services on our website, getpublishеdradio.com. So whether you're an author, a publisher, or a self-promoter, get help at getpublishedradio.com. And thanks for listening.